Are you looking for some Christmas crafts that you can do on a budget that are quick and easy? I have several in today's episode that really fit that bill, and I think you will enjoy these projects. Thank you for stopping by Lavender and Lace. I am Alicia, and I like to craft with things that I already have on hand or items that I can find at the Dollar Tree and just transform them into some really cute and beautiful Christmas DIYs. And I hope you will enjoy these projects that I have for you. Please subscribe if you haven't already and give this video a thumbs up. And without further ado, let's get started with today's projects. I had found this hat at Dollar Tree in their 4th of July section this year, and I grabbed it because I thought it would be the perfect hat for a snowman. And then I just paired that with this other Island Time sign that they had in the summer selection. And I just started this by removing all of those hangers, and I popped off that little band piece on the hat. And I have learned my lesson with these Dollar Tree signs with all of this glitter. I either cover them with craft paper like I'm doing for this one, or I take them out and sand all this glitter off. Otherwise, it just gets all over everything and I can't get rid of it. So to save myself a little bit of headache and time, I went ahead and covered both pieces with just some of this craft paper, and you can pick that up at the Dollar Tree as well. And I just used one of my trusty Elmer's glue sticks to get that paper attached to both of these signs. I like to have a lot of these on hand. I try to stock up on these when they have these in the back to school supplies, so be sure you grab those around the summertime. And I just grabbed several different colors of my Waverly chalk paint. I want to do the hat in the color ink, the circle in Snow White, and then I just did that band with my crimson. You could totally change out that color for the band, and this would transition easily into winter time if you don't want to do that red for Christmas. I did 2 coats of the white on the circle and 2 coats of the red for the hat band, and I just glued that back onto the front of his top hat. And then I just positioned the hat on the top of the snowman's head to see where I wanted that, and then just marked out some guidelines so I would know exactly where to put that down once I had my hot glue on there. And I had this frame from a canvas. I used the canvas for another project and I had just saved this. This one is a 16 by 20 size. And I just put my snowman's face behind that frame. And I had looked up some different snowman faces on Google and just picked out one that I thought was cute. And I didn't want him to look happy. I wanted him to look like he was looking through a window and wanted to be inside where it was warm. So I made his face look a little wistful or sad, I guess you would say. So I just traced that out, and then I just took some acrylic paint and I painted his eyes with the black, and then I just did his nose with the orange. And it took 2 coats of the orange to get the coverage that I wanted. And when you are painting, just keep in mind that the way you lay your brush strokes will kind of help your design look the way you want it to. So I kind of did curved strokes on the carrot nose to make it look more like a carrot. And then I just took a Sharpie and just traced out his mouth. And I used some of the crimson chalk paint for his cheeks. I didn't have any red acrylic paint, so I just used what I had on hand. Just dabbed a little bit on my pinky, and it was a little bit too dark for me. So I just took a paper towel and wet that with just a little bit of water and kind of smudged that and buffed that color out just a little bit, and then just took a dry section of that paper towel and wiped off some of that excess water. So once I had my snowman face completed, it was time to work on the window frame of this project. I hope I can explain this process to you guys so it makes sense. I had a game plan in mind. I was just hoping that I could execute that and that it would actually work the way I thought it was going to. So I had a couple of these wooden dowel rods that I got from Hobby Lobby, and these are the square ones. So I just marked out kind of where I needed to cut these. I just laid them out over that wooden canvas frame and just marked out some lines and cut those down with my miter shears. I just did one long piece for the center, and then I took another piece and just cut that down into two smaller sections. And I took a piece of sandpaper and just smoothed down those rough edges where I had made my cuts. And I used my Waverly antique wax and just stained the frame front and back, and I did the dowel rods as well. And I just removed any excess stain with a paper towel. And I had asked my husband what he thought the best way would be to get this window, I don't know what you call this, the panes in, I guess. Not exactly sure the correct terminology there, but the way that he was telling me to do it was a little bit complicated. So this is how I decided to do it. It worked well for me, and so far it's holding and is pretty secure, and I'm pretty proud of the finished product. So once I had everything stained, I just laid those pieces down again and just put some marks around the outside of the frame. And I had picked up these tools in a wood carving set from the Dollar Tree. I used the round tip and the triangle blade as well on here. I just used a hammer also to get that round blade into the frame, and that just put kind of some score lines in there. And then I was able to use that triangle blade and just kind of carve out a notch. I did 4 of those for each pieces of my dowel rods. And while I was doing that, I would just periodically put my dowel rods in that notch just to make sure they were going to fit in. And to attach my dowel rods, I just used some wood glue, super glue, and some hot glue to secure those into place. And I did have to trim these up a little bit more while I was trying to get them put into the frame. I knew that if they were a little too long that they would break while I was trying to put those in there. And then for those side pieces, I used the wood glue, super glue, and that hot glue in the notch as well, and then just a little bit of hot glue on the end to glue that to the centerpiece. And to make sure these were not going to come off that centerpiece, I did put a little bit of extra hot glue on the back of those. And then I just laid it out over the face once again to see where I wanted to glue that down. There were parts of this where it was not sitting flush with my snowman, so I wanted to be sure that I got the hot glue in the right places so it would hold. And I also wanted to make sure that my snowman's face was not sticking out too far on the bottom, otherwise this would not be able to stand up where I want to display it. And then I just put a little bit of extra hot glue on the back underneath his hat and held that down so it was attached well. And then I just took a couple of these small wood planks that you can get in a pack from the Dollar Tree, just glued 2 of those together using my small popsicle sticks. I used my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster and did just 1 coat on that. And these wood beads were kind of an afterthought, but I thought this just needed a little bit of decorative touch to this sign, so I just glued 1 in each of the 4 corners and just painted those with that Waverly chalk paint as well. And I took some of that Waverly antique wax and just did some distressing all over the entire surface of my sign just to age that a little bit. And it just also helps those wood beads kind of stand out from the background and just give this a little bit more texture. And I cut out this phrase or decal, whatever you want to call this, with my Cricut Maker and just weeded that out and got it ready to go. I used my favorite paper transfer tape. I get this from Expressions Vinyl. I bought this roll probably 2 years ago and I haven't had to buy that again. It lasts a very long time, but you can also find this on Amazon as well. And I just centered that on my sign and I got that put down with my little Cricut burnishing tool. And I thought that saying would be a perfect fit for the look on my snowman's face. You guys let me know what you think. And I just glued a jute twine hanger on the back of my sign with some hot glue. And I grabbed some of my greenery and berry picks that I have in my stash and just glued several of those down to the top of my sign. I know I covered up my holly leaves on there, but I was okay with that. I liked the greenery better. I thought it just made this sign look a little bit better. And I love to use a pencil to wrap my pit berries. It just gives them a very good coil and spiral. Just glued those in different places in my greenery. And I had a very small piece of this snowman ribbon left on a roll that I found at the Dollar Tree last year, and I thought that would, of course, be perfect for this project. So I just glued that down into the center and trimmed off the tails. And for just a finishing touch on my snowman, I found this snowflake that I had in my stash that I had cut out from vinyl probably last winter. And I thought that would be super cute just to add to the band on his hat. And I just took a small cup hook and just added that to the top right corner of my window. And this is how it looks complete and finished. He is absolutely adorable. Isn't he going to make just the perfect porch greeter this Christmas? And you can absolutely change out that sign easily and transition that to something for winter. But what do you guys think about this one? So I got the idea for this next project while I was scrolling through Amazon. I like to look on there and see what kind of Christmas decorations they might have. And I found this vintage style hanging banner and I thought I could totally make that. I really need to make a shirt that says that. I could totally make that because I say that all the time. But I thought this one was really cute and I just loved all of the images on this one. And I went to Creative Fabrica. That is one of my favorite websites to find any fonts, SVGs, graphics, anything like that. I always try to have that linked in my description box if you want to check that out. And I just did a search for vintage Christmas cards and I scrolled through all of the design choices that they had and I found one that I really liked. I liked the designs, the images, and the fonts on this one. And this is very easy to download. You just find whichever design that you want and you can just download that to your computer and it's just very easy to print that out. And I printed these out on some white cardstock. I just did a test on a couple of those first to see what size I wanted these. And I actually wound up sizing mine 7 inches tall by 5 inches wide. And I just trimmed out each card with my Cricut paper cutter. And I also wanted to antique these just a little bit more. They printed really nicely. I liked all of the colors on there, but I decided just to rip off each of the edges, just give that rough edge on each of my cards. And I had the idea to antique these a little bit more with some watercolor paint. And I actually found a YouTube channel. All she does is watercolor tutorials. And I will leave a link for her channel in the description box as well. So I kind of just played around with this to see what I liked the best. I have used watercolors before. I like to make postcards and things by using my watercolor paints. So I just started with that darker brown color, just went around the edges and just had a lot of water on my brush, kind of let that absorb and bleed into the paper. And I also did just some splatters as well over each of my designs, kind of just blended that in a little bit more with the tip of my brush, and also took kind of, I guess that color would be maybe burnt sienna, kind of a lighter brown, and just added some of that to the edges as well, and just played around with that until I was happy with the finished look, and just set those aside to dry completely, and then just took my hole punch and punched some holes in the corners of each of my cards. And then I just laid these out, kind of played around with the placement of these and put different designs and fonts together until I had the look that I wanted, and just strung those up with some jute twine, and that is it. This is such a simple and easy craft, and it comes together quickly, but it is a really fun project. What do you guys think about this one? I love to crochet, so I always have plenty of yarn in my stash, so I grabbed one of my hunter green ones and just wrapped that several times around my fingers to get a smaller bundle to make it easier to work with for this project. And I also grabbed a couple of different sizes of my canning rings. I got the wide mouth and the regular mouth size for this project, and I will be making 4 of these. These are going to be mini wreaths. And I just started by securing some of my yarn down on the inside of that ring and just started wrapping and wrapping and wrapping this. That's one of these projects that's kind of monotonous, so you could be watching a Christmas movie or listening to an audiobook or something like that while you're doing this part of the project. Just glue your tail to the inside of that ring once you have it completely wrapped. And I like to grab these greenery picks from Walmart. You get a really good size bundle for 98 cents, and this worked perfect for this mini wreath project. I just cut off these smaller sections on the main stem from several of these picks, and I just started by putting these down with some hot glue, and I did work clockwise with this. That just helps you hide the ends of each of your little greenery pieces. Just glued those completely around to cover my canning ring form. And then I had some of these frosted greenery picks as well, and I just added several small pieces to this particular mini wreath. And I actually didn't like those as good. I like these better with just that one type of greenery on there. I don't know if these were just a little bit too big for this particular project, but I left them on there. And then I just took some smaller pieces of that first greenery that I have been working with and just filled in any bare spots on my wreath. And I made a hanger for this to be an ornament that you can hang on your tree, or you could even add these to your gifts this year, and that would just be a super cute embellishment to your presents. And just took a couple of pieces of some of my red and white baker's twine and just tied a simple shoelace bow and just glued that to the center of my first wreath. I love making these smaller projects like this. They are quick and easy to do, and this one would actually double as a candle ring. I had the idea for that while I was making these. And for this other smaller wreath, I had some of that red glitter glue that I thought would be cute to add as berries. And then I started looking through my buttons and beads that I have on hand, and I found these snowflakes and that super cute little tiny snowman that you can see there, and I wanted to add those to one of these other wreaths. Just glued all of those pieces down with some hot glue, and of course I laid them out first and did a dry fit before I started gluing everything down. And how cute is that snowman? I just love him. I just wish that he had a hat. But anyway, he's cute without the hat. And then I added a red ribbon bow to this one. I just thought that would match the scarf on my snowman. If you wanted that to transition to winter instead of Christmas, you could do a different color bow and maybe color the scarf on that snowman to match your bow. And I also had some of these pearl beads in my stash, and I had picked these up in a multi-pack from the Dollar Tree. They come in 3 different sizes, and I just glued those down onto, this one was the regular mouth canning lid. Just glued those down with some hot glue and places that I thought would look the best. And I love these white pearl beads. This one just looks so wintry and elegant. And I also have some of these teeny tiny, almost microscopic clear beads. You guys may not even be able to see those on the camera there, but I just used some of my Cricut tweezers and glued those down in different areas on this wreath. And I added a silver sparkly bow to the top of this one. And I just love those beads so much that I went back on that bigger size wreath and added some of the pearl beads and some different shades of red to that one to look like some red berries. And those Cricut tweezers really came in handy for this project. And I found one really small snowflake button that I had still in my stash, and I thought that was the perfect finishing touch for that wreath. These were a lot of fun to make, and you can completely change out whatever colors to match your theme that you have this year. What do you guys think about these? So here's another really quick, easy, budget-friendly craft that you can do. Save some of your toilet paper tubes, and you will start by cutting those down into rings. I cut mine into about 1/2 inch in width, and I also had several different colors of blue yarn in my stash, and I cut a lot of strips of that. These were about 7 to 8 inches in length. And this project is probably one that you are familiar with. It has been very popular for several years. We actually made these at a homeschool Christmas craft day that we had a few years ago. But you'll just want to take one of your strips of yarn, make sure that your ends are even. Just make a loop and pull that loop underneath your toilet paper tube, and then thread your two ends through that loop and just pull that tight, and you will have kind of a knot on the top of your toilet paper ring, and you will just continue doing that until you have your ring completely covered with your yarn. And you'll want to kind of scoot your yarn pieces together to make sure that you don't have any gaps and are able to see any of that brown toilet paper tube left. Then you'll want to take that entire bundle of yarn and kind of just twist that together and stick that through. Turn that wrong side out, really, and that will make your hat for this little beanie that we are making. Just make sure that you get all of your pieces of yarn flipped wrong side out. Then just kind of comb those out with your fingers. Make sure there's no knots or tangles. Take another piece of your yarn and just knot that very tightly, about, I don't know, maybe an inch away from the brim of your hat, whatever looks good to you. And then just take your scissors and trim off all of those long pieces of your yarn. And I like to have a very sharp pair of scissors to continue trimming that down to get my little pom-pom on the top of my beanie. And I glued a cotton ball on the inside of my hat just to make sure that it would hold its shape and that it would be a little bit fluffed out and not fall flat on me. And I had picked up a pack of ping pong balls at the Dollar Tree, and I thought those would make the perfect snowman's head. So I just glued the beanie onto the top of one of the ping pong balls. And then I just took a black and orange Sharpie and drew some snowmen's faces on each of my ping pong balls. And my daughter Gracelyn actually helped me with this part. She had a lot of fun designing the faces for each of our little snowmen. She even named each one of them because they had a lot of character and personality. And we gave them all some really cute, rosy, either pink or red cheeks. And these are absolutely adorable. I love how these are turning out so far. And I grabbed just some white wooden beads that I had in a pack of the red, green, and white that I got from Hobby Lobby. And I also had some jingle bells in my stash. And I just laid everything out in the pattern that I thought would look the best for this snowman garland. And I used a yarn needle and just some jute twine to thread everything on. You can use either the yarn needle like I am using, or you could also use a doll needle. It just makes making garlands a whole lot easier. And I just threaded everything on there. And I made sure to leave myself pretty long tails on either end so I would be able to adjust this as needed. And how cute is this, y'all? I love this. It is absolutely adorable. And I went with the blue colors, so this will transition very well into winter. But I would love to know what you guys think about this one. That wraps up another round of Christmas DIYs. Let me know which of these is your favorite. I always enjoy reading those comments, and I would also love to know what is your favorite crafting item that you can find at the Dollar Tree. Let me know that in the comments as well. Please give this video a thumbs up. That really helps my channel to grow, and I will see you guys in the next one.